Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. It's Sunday night. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. right here on the Bible Forum. You can catch us on YouTube or Facebook, or you can go to our website, thebibleforum.net. There's a video screen there. It also has some other links, some things that you can tap into. If you don't know how to get to YouTube or how to get to the Facebook, there's links there from that. Or you can just watch the program on Sunday Night Live right there. I have a number of social issues that I want to talk to you about tonight. This first one I've entitled, This is How It's Done. It's all about social justice. Recently, we learned that Tyler Perry, the actor, celebrated the grand opening of his newest Atlanta studio location. Seems this man purchased 330 acres of the former Fort McPherson complex in 2015 to make it the new home of Tyler Perry Studios. Tyler Perry Studios is one of the largest film production studios in the nation and established Tyler Perry as the first African American to outright own a major film production studio. In 2018, Tyler Perry sold his previous studio location opened in 2008 to another film production company. The previous studio location occupied two former Delta Airlines affiliated buildings in the Greenbrier area of southwest Atlanta. It included 200,000 square feet of sets and office space. Tyler Perry Studios was first established as the Tyler Perry Company, Incorporated, recently rebranded as Tyler Perry Studios. Besides Perry's own projects, other major Hollywood-type projects have filmed there, such as The Walking Dead and Black Panther. Now, here's a man who happened to be born with black skin. And instead of focusing on whatever limitations that presented to him, he simply went to work, doing what he loved. I don't believe you've ever seen him in a protest rally or heard him complaining about the disadvantages of being a man of color in America. He simply used the opportunities afforded and quietly built an empire. I have no idea what he's worth. It's in the billions, if not the trillions. And this accomplishment is nothing short of spectacular, no matter who did it. It's a testimony to what one man or one woman can do in America. Not a company, an individual. And to be a black man and able to do it. No doubt drawing on the testimony and the motivation of Oprah Winfrey, who did it too. Neither of these stars made it their business to highlight the fact that they are darker skinned than most people. Neither of these successful business people traded minority status or their black heritage. They just made movies and TV shows, doing what any American would do in the same situation if they had half a brain and the gumption. Are they aware of their status in the black community? Oh yeah. The same as any obviously different looking person would be, but you don't see them making that an issue. They are talented, clever business people who happen to be black-skinned. Do they have the right to be proud? Oh yeah. It was no doubt harder for them than for a lot of others. Not for all others, but for a lot of others. But they persevered. They overcame. They didn't quit. They didn't complain. They ended up on top. This is the way to make it in America. Anybody can do it. Sadly, young people coming up today think they have to do it on the shirt tails of some political agenda or another. It doesn't have to be that way. Be good at what you do and stay with it. I applaud them. We heard this week that Dick's Sporting Goods store CEO, name of Ed Stack, is not backing down from his company's decision to pull the assault-style rifles from his shelves despite profit losses. Now he's even bragging that his firm turned $5 million worth of leftover inventory into scrap metal. Is that good business? Is he being a good citizen? Or is he simply pandering to the liberal left? One pundit by the name of Matt Walsh pointed out that Dick's still sells knives, and knives kill 5 times as many people as guns last year. So where are you on the gun issue? Well, in America, anywhere between 39 and 50% of households have at least one gun. That's 43 to 55 million households. You know any armies of the world with that many foot soldiers? The number of guns this represents is estimated to be anywhere from 190 to 300 million. Now, reasonably speaking, 52 million Americans and 260 million guns. That's 88.7 guns for every 100 Americans. We are number 1 in the world for private gun ownership per capita. And a major sporting goods store is willing to antagonize that demographic. Of course, the balance is in the fact that Dick's is eliminating only the assault-style rifles, not all guns. And the question is, do you need an assault rifle? An assault rifle is a selective fire rifle that uses an intermediate cartridge and a detachable magazine. The examples we're given are the STG-44, the AK-47, and the M16 rifle. And the argument for getting rid of these weapons is the camel's nose in the tent argument. If you let them go, it'll take over. In America, we honor gun ownership. Our citizens don't know why. But if they study history, the founders decided, based on history, they knew that if the population had their guns taken away from them, they would just be victims of the next dictator that came along. It is estimated that there are more guns in the state of Pennsylvania than in all the armies, standing armies of the world today. It's one of the only reasons our government stays as sane as it is. It's one. It's not the only one. But they know. Hard road. Not enough police officers, not enough military people to take all those guns away from people. They will one day, one way or another. I got an article here on karma. You know what karma is? You do this, you're going to get that. Cases of 3 common sexually transmitted diseases in the United States reached a record level in 2018. That, according to a new report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Gonorrhea and cases of primary and secondary syphilis are the diseases most counted. They're the most infectious in certain stages. They reached their highest levels since 1991, last year. The country's 115,045 syphilis cases included more than 35,000 cases of primary and secondary syphilis, making the 14.9% rate uptick from 2017. We're going in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, there were more than 583,000 cases of gonorrhea, a rate increase of 5% over 2017, and the rate of reported chlamydia cases rose 3% to total more than 1.7 million in 2018, nearly two-thirds of which were among people 15 to 24 years of age. Together, the diseases accounted for more than 2.4 million cases. That's an all-time high since data on these three conditions first started being collected in 1984. Although 41 states reported 1,306 cases of congenital syphilis in 2018, 70% were concentrated in just 5 states: Texas, California, Florida, Arizona, and Louisiana. The uptick is tied to higher rates of syphilis overall in those states, as well as a nationwide rate increase among women. 172.7% in primary and secondary syphilis between 2014 and 2018. Why? Have you not seen what is called entertainment in the last 10 years? Do you not understand what the social experts are telling these young people? In our schools? Since the 1960s, sex has become both entertainment and sport, not to mention big business. Americans have replaced both love and commitment with sexual activity. Back in those days, AIDS scared us into a forced type of careful celibacy. AIDS was brought to this continent by a homosexual man. They knew his name. They knew where he was. And they did nothing. When Typhoid Mary came along, she was carrying typhus. They isolated her so she couldn't infect the rest of the population. Not so with AIDS. They allowed it to spread. And it's a deadly disease. It kills every time. And it's spread by sexual contact. We were not permitted to call this a scourge. We were not permitted to isolate the carriers. What we did was to put rubber gloves on police officers and nurses and others who had to handle these people. This was all politically and socially incorrect. And we ended up burying our mistakes. If we'd have done what we knew was right, it would have meant curtailing the sexual revolution. And we couldn't have that. Why? Well, because in the 1980s, we had God on the run. And that was more important. But that's all over now. We have AIDS under control, don't we? We have medications. But we don't. AIDS still kills. And there's still no cure. The side effects for the various drugs used to control AIDS is a list as long as your arm. None of them pleasant. But the entertainment world continues to tell young people that love is all about sex. Of course, that's not true. The reality is that sex is about love. It's the old cart before the horse thing. God created human beings to reproduce. And to reproduce, there must be sexual intercourse. But God also created what we call marriage. One man and one woman for life. Divorce was allowed to protect the life of the woman, not to allow us multiple partners. Under Old Testament law, she could be stoned. But she couldn't be divorced. So God allowed for divorce. When we reject these principles in order to please ourselves, we're rejecting the God who made them. And therein lies the answer to our divorce issues. And, of course, to our disease issues. It's all wrapped up in our view of God. We have other expediencies regarding morality. The wife of an American diplomat is accused of driving on the wrong side of the road after pulling out of an Air Force base in North Hampshire, Great Britain, and she fatally struck a 19-year-old man who was riding on his motorcycle. He was in the correct lane. She was not. What was the matter with her? She was in Great Britain. They drive on the other side of the road. If you're going to send your children off to Great Britain, you have to tell them, when you get to the curb, look right first, not left. All of this happened because she was not familiar enough, wasn't careful enough. Now, the woman is from Virginia. She just happens to be the wife of an American diplomat. The problem here is that the defendant appeared to be cooperating with British authorities. And then one day she just left the country. It's called diplomatic immunity. It's done all the time. What makes this offensive, especially to me, is that this woman's an American. I think we expect more, don't we? Apparently the woman or her husband thought she might get jail time. Not sure how all that works in Great Britain. It's a possibility. But the grieving family is soliciting the assistance of British officials. They claim all they want is closure, not jail time. What would you do? Keep in mind, the law is on her side. All over the world, we have diplomatic immunity. Every nation has it. Have for generations. I'd like to take you in your mind down to Dallas, Texas. Joshua Brown, a man who was a key witness in the murder trial, former Dallas police officer, was shot. The police officer who shot the black neighbor, you remember the case. She went into the wrong apartment. We saw later on, online at least, maybe on news as well, that the black neighbor across the hall from where this man was shot later hugged Amber in compassion and support. In less than a week, he was brutally gunned down in the parking lot at his apartment complex. Witnesses flagged down police and directed them to Brown's body. He was then transported to a local hospital where he died. Attorney Lee Merritt said that Brown was ambushed and executed while exiting his vehicle in the apartment complex parking lot, that he was shot at close range. However, where exactly Brown was shot remains disputed. Lee reported the mouth and chest, but the Dallas Morning News, citing a government official, said the back and thigh. Either way, he died. But the speculation is that he was shot because of his public support of Amber, the woman who shot the black man. Of course, by the end of the day, it was clear Joshua was a drug dealer. His customers shot and killed him. This next article comes under the heading of, I told you. British trans activist Charlie Evans made big news last week when she announced she is detransitioning, and that many trans people have approached her saying that gender assignment reassignment surgery does not help gender dysphoria. According to Sky News, Evans was born female, but decided to live as a male before she detransitioned in 2018. Ruby told Sky News that she began identifying as a male when she was 13. She took testosterone to deepen her voice and grow facial hair. Question: where'd she get it? Well, a doctor gave it to her. They have socialized medicine over there. Did her parents know? Probably. But even if they didn't, they could have figured it out. And she was planning surgery to remove her breasts. However, back in May, Ruby decided to detransition back to female. Evans, who's a trans rights activist, announced that she would no longer be taking her hormone therapy or identify as a male, said she received a huge response. I'm in communication with 19 and 20-year-olds who have had full gender reassignment surgery who wish they had not, and who tell me that their dysphoria hasn't been relieved. They don't feel better as a result. According to Evans, she's been approached by hundreds of people, mostly females in their mid-20s, who are same-sex attracted, who have asked her either to speak out or to help them find support for their own efforts to detransition. Evans says that she was motivated to take her struggle public after giving a talk where she was approached by a young woman who would also detransition. She said she felt shunned by the LGBT community for being a traitor. Evans said, so I felt I had to do something. She ended up starting a non-profit organization in Newcastle, England, that seeks to provide support for trans people who want to transition back. As previously reported at the Blaze National Health System Centre in the UK, have begun offering gender transition support to children as young as 3 and 4. And have been skyrocketing rates of participation in gender transition services. 3 and 4-year-old children don't know their own names. One such facility, the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust, disputed Evans' characterization, saying, quote, decisions about physical interventions made in our care are arrived at after thorough exploration process. Take the child's clothing off. Examine their body. That's what they are. I can do that. He said, while some of our patients may decide not to pursue physical treatment or drop out of treatment, the experience of regret described here is rarely seen. I wonder how many feel the freedom to express their regret, or that they understand the feelings they're having is really regret. A woman is launching a charity that will help hundreds of young transgender people return to their original gender. You mess with God-ordained things, they blow up in your face every time. If you believe in God.